In California's Suisun Bay, hundreds of decommissioned military and merchant vessels sit perfectly still in the water, anchored together in massive, silent rows. These vessels once represented the backbone of American maritime logistics, ships that supported global trade and projected military strength across every ocean. Constructing this armada was a multi-billion-dollar national investment, a massive allocation of resources intended to secure the country's maritime future. Today, that investment is rusting. The steel is peeling, the hulls are deteriorating, and the ships have been left to sit idle in the saltwater. The government stored these ships as a strategic reserve, a just-in-case fleet that could be reactivated and sent back into service during a national emergency. But as decades passed, most of these vessels never returned to the sea. This investigation looks at how a multi-billion-dollar insurance policy slowly transformed into a crippling financial liability. The ghost fleet is the physical manifestation of an economic trap. It represents a multi-billion-dollar asset that was once meant to save the future, but has instead become a permanent anchor in the past. The fleet's origins lie in the post-war industrial boom. During the 1940s, American shipyards operated at a scale that produced far more vessels than the country would eventually need for peacetime commerce. When global conflicts subsided, policymakers chose to store the surplus vessels rather than scrapping them for their raw steel. Saltwater is inherently destructive to metal. Without constant attention, the humid maritime environment relentlessly breaks down the integrity of exposed steel. Keeping a stored fleet from sinking requires a constant cycle of maintenance. Workers must conduct structural inspections, perform complex hull repairs, and manage systems to prevent environmental leaks. Economists call this a carrying cost. It is the active financial drain incurred simply by holding on to an unused, aging asset. This chart shows the baseline for an inactive fleet. Stationary and decommissioned, they generated zero economic value. As the ships age, the math shifts. The cost to patch thinning hulls and failing machinery grows exponentially with every year the fleet sits in the water. Physical assets are never truly frozen. Without continuous, expensive intervention, the environment will systematically strip them of their value. While the ghost fleet remained idle, the broader maritime industry underwent a rapid technological evolution. Modern shipping moved toward massive scale and hyper-efficiency. New vessels utilized automated navigation and cleaner, more powerful engines that reduced the cost of moving goods across the globe. On the docks, automation replaced manual labor. Modern port terminals began using guided vehicles and mechanized cranes, systems that the mid-century designs of the reserve fleet were never built to accommodate. This created a financial checkmate. Modernizing a 60-year-old ship to meet today's efficiency standards would cost more than purchasing a brand-new, superior vessel. The obvious solution was to sell the ships for scrap, but the government encountered a second obstacle. Older ships were built with hazardous materials like lead and asbestos. Safe disposal is now subject to heavy environmental regulations and requires intense manual labor to prevent contamination. This photo shows the reality of dismantling a single vessel. Every internal section must be stripped and the toxins removed before the steel can be recycled, a process that is both slow and incredibly expensive. The government was stuck holding assets that had become liabilities, too expensive to upgrade, too expensive to maintain, and too expensive to destroy. Today, most of the ghost fleet has been removed. At great taxpayer expense, these ships have finally been towed away and painstakingly dismantled. This cycle is not unique to maritime history. The same economic trap occurs daily in the corporate and political world. This diagram shows the life cycle of major investments. Whether it is legacy software or obsolete infrastructure, an asset that was once a source of strength can eventually become a permanent drain on resources. Leaders often hesitate to cut their losses. They look at the billions of dollars spent in the past rather than the mounting costs required to sustain a failing system. This is a failure to recognize when a market or technology has shifted so far that the old model can no longer compete. Enduring economic power depends on ruthless financial discipline, the ability to identify when a market has shifted and let the past go.